Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, Anwar is the solicitor representing the bereaved group at the COVID inquiry. And he's made sort of a scathing comment on Nicola Sturgeon and her honesty, I suppose, is really where you'd go with it. Saying that it was obvious, in his words, blindingly obvious, that though all these WhatsApps should be kept. Over 2 years they've had notice that they would be needed for the inquiries, and they knew that they could never really show them, which is why, of course, they kept deleting them. But they would have known that it was necessary. So you have to ask the reasoning behind their deletion, which you don't have to ask at all. We know, but the inquiry needs to know. The inquiry needs to establish why, knowing that these would be needed, they deleted them. And of course, we can come to only one conclusion: that those WhatsApps were so damaging that it would lead to them going to prison for perhaps some very serious crimes, perhaps even crimes against humanity. And that wouldn't surprise me at all in the least. But we'll have a look at this quick report here about Anwar and what he's saying about Nicola Sturgeon. Here goes. Well, this isn't a hugely long piece, but I do think it's something that's quite telling, really, where you've got this lawyer basically calling out what no one else is calling out, in terms of no one on the inquiry board is calling it out, but he is. He's bringing this up into the realm of the inquiry, which it needs to be there. It needs to be presented so that they then have that door opened for them. They also can answer these questions. So Anwar says it was blindingly obvious that Nicola Sturgeon's WhatsApps should have been kept. Well, yeah, I mean, it's blindingly obvious they should never have done anything on WhatsApp to begin with. But, they don't want any official record of all the awful things that they've done. The leading lawyer, who is representing the Scottish COVID bereaved group at the UK and Scottish public inquiries, says ministers and officials have known for more than 2 years that their messages would be scrutinised, which of course is the whole reason that they've spent those 2 years deleting everything they can delete, because they don't want to be scrutinised, because they know that scrutiny will not look good on them. The conversations they will have had will be awful. The First Minister has been told it would have been blindingly obvious the WhatsApp messages sent by Scottish Government would later be needed for public inquiry. The damning indictment came as Humza Yousaf denied claims that he and Deputy Shona Robertson misled Holyrood over their handling of information during the pandemic. Now, he can deny it all he wants, but we know that is a lie. His denial is a lie. He's actually now denying the lies that he told about other lies. This man is so confused about everything. He's not very good at lying, is he? Anyway, instead he claimed to have interpreted requests for the messages from the UK inquiry too narrowly, which is obviously horse shit. We've covered that this morning. Anyway, the First Minister was also slammed over his government's stance in sending redacted legal advice to the investigation, a move which critics described as an affront to victims. One lawyer representing the families of those who died from COVID even suggested the Scottish Government was obstructing the search for justice, which of course they are. And this is why Anwar is so good at his job. He's looking there, he's calling it as it is. He's not hiding behind polite speech. He's calling these people what they are. And that's good. Anwar, the lawyer representing the Scottish COVID bereaved, a group set up by relatives of those who died as a result of the pandemic, slammed Mr Yousaf for his response to the UK inquiry, slamming his lies effectively, slamming his evasion, slamming his misdirection, slamming all this seedy, underhand, dirty, low-down piece of shit, which is all Humza Yousaf is, bluntly, at the end of the day. Anyway, Anwar said, "Once again, our First Minister has failed to illuminate why his government told the UK inquiry that the majority of WhatsApp messages for members of the Scottish Government were not retained by witnesses. We note that on the 31st of October, the Deputy First Minister, Shona Robertson, stated, and her words are, 'Let me be clear.'" And you know, whenever anyone says, "let me be clear," you're about to hear a load of shit, don't you? Anyway, she said, "Let me be clear, however, that contrary to some reports, there is not and never has been a requirement for any official, let alone ministers, to auto-delete messages without ensuring that the relevant information from them is captured and saved appropriately first. And if you haven't heard a pile of horse shit, That's it. That is it. Because they've already admitted that they had messages on auto-delete. And they, it's just disgusting the amount of lies these people are telling. Anyway, Mr. Anwar continued. Whilst a great deal has been made by the government of disclosing some 14,000 WhatsApp messages, that barely touches the tip of the iceberg when placed in context. Matt Hancock had 100,000 WhatsApp messages alone. The lawyer continued, we were astonished to hear the words contrary to some reports, because this was information provided by the government to the inquiry. Yeah, these reports that she's saying were her government's reports. It is a matter of public record that the UK inquiry stated that they were told the majority of the relevant messages had not been retained by individuals. That's what they said. On the 24th of August 2021, the Scottish Government announced plans for a Scottish COVID inquiry. It ought to have been blindingly obvious to the politicians and civil servants from that date, if not earlier, that their contemporaneous messages may be of relevance to the public inquiry. Of course, it was immediately apparent to them, which is why they immediately deleted them. They didn't ever want to be in a position where they had to reveal the truth, because the truth means jail. On the 31st of October, an apology was offered in Parliament to the Scottish COVID bereaved, and the First Minister wished to meet with my clients. They will not do so until the numerous concerns raised in our letter to Mr Yousaf on the 27th of October are addressed. The Scottish COVID bereaved believe it is an important principle of government transparency and accountability that official records are kept of key actions and decisions. Relevant information that exists in the private correspondence channels of public authorities should also be available and included in responses to information requests received. He's quite right. These people are trying to use non-official means to try and snide their way across and go, hide this, hide that, cover this up, be secretive about that. We'll do this here. It's not official. We can make all the decisions out of the glare of publicity, away from public record, where we can't ever be held accountable. Because they were making some awful decisions. They were making life and death decisions. They were making, and in my view, and I can't prove it, it's the rumour, it's what I believe, that they were making deliberate decisions to deliberately target and decide to effectively kill, euthanise the elderly, because the elderly are pro-union. And it was politically expedient, in my view, for them to make that decision to try and reduce the number of people who would vote union, and they could do that quite easily by filling elderly people's homes with illness in the hope that a lot of old people died, and 5,500 did. And it's my view that that was done deliberately. I can't prove it, but it's what I believe. It's my deeply held philosophical belief. 2010 Equality Act. I can say that quite clearly and without risking prosecution. Because I'm not saying it did happen. I'm saying it's my belief that it happened. I've got to protect. I know it's flowery language. Do apologise, but I've got to protect myself for obvious reasons. Anyway, he wrote, the UK inquiry wrote to the Scottish Government, explaining that the inquiry was constrained from fully carrying out its function because of not having access to material which had been redacted from documents by reason of LPP or pursuant to the Law Officers Convention. The Scottish Government perfectly understands that in order for the inquiry to be understand to the fullest possible extent all of the considerations that were taken into account by ministers, it needs to see all the advice provided to them of any description, including any legal advice they were given. In other words, hand over the full details, unredacted, do so and prepare for jail. That's basically what they're saying. Were the legal advice to be redacted, the inquiry can only see part of the story and may miss important material that might help explain the decisions taken. There should be no redaction for this inquiry. Mr Anwar concluded the inquiry can and will redact sensitive and irrelevant material as it has done for the UK government before disclosing it to the core participants. Why should the Scottish Government be any different? But it is vital that the inquiry obtains this material from the Scottish Government. In other words, what they're saying is the inquiry made for the protection of people or certain secretive reasons or reasons of national security, etc., may redact that information from public knowledge, but the inquiry must see all that information to arrive at its decision. and they're right. And I don't think any of it should be redacted. Personally, I think it should all be made out open, public. We should all see, because justice must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done, and we must see what these people have done. Let us judge them. He concluded, no government or politician, whether based in Westminster or Holyrood, should seek to hide behind LPP to stop the public finding out what happened in the corridors of power during the pandemic. I quite agree with him, 100%. He said the substantive hearings are 2 months away. Any further delay is inexcusable. Yeah, but they're going to delay, aren't they? They're going to delay as much as they can because she doesn't want to go to jail. And her little puckering bottom right now, because of the Louise Lawrence laptop. Now, what Louise Lawrence needs to do, straight away, get that out. Get someone who knows, get that open, get that analysed, get that thing copied. Because otherwise they'll be going, bang, can we have copies of it? We want that laptop, we want that laptop. Somebody will break in her house and steal it. Get it to a secure location. Get it copied. Get it backed up. Publish it. Everything. Put everything in the public domain. Give them nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. I want to see her rot in a cell. I'm coming up. Now, I'll be honest, I'd never heard of Aamar Anwar before this inquiry. But as it's gone on, he's shown himself to be a very intelligent man. He's got a very forensic mind. He's asking questions that other people seem to be shying away from. And he's not holding back on expressing the opinions that need to be expressed. So I actually give him a little salute. Thank you very much, Mr. Aamar Anwar. You are doing a fine job. Keep it up. Hold these people to account. Roast them. Roast their feet at the fire. Get the truth out of them. And hopefully we can see a few of them going to clink. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been informative. Do please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, and please share the video. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and we will monitor this and see what comes up next. There's always something else. Thank you. Goodbye.